I begin my analysis on the 4-hour chart, while the contextual framework is derived from higher time frames. Within this structure, I identify two distinct ranges: a broad, general range, and a more refined internal range. The first element that stands out is the clean, well-structured trend the euro is building. I am not searching for the channel itself. During an expansion phase, channel boundaries primarily represent zones of liquidity and dynamic energy, rather than meaningful price limits. What I am actually looking for is the backbone of the channel, the 0.5 level, the equilibrium point of the dynamic attractor that defines the channel center. I locate this channel center through higher time frames, while simultaneously studying the cycles that evolve around it and the way they become stretched. This process allows me to understand the macro expansion by tracing it back to the micro expansion that initiated the move. After establishing the 4-hour context and understanding the trend flow, I move down to the 1-hour range. There, I begin to compress and refine the price ranges. As can be seen in the upper section, a cascade of levels is formed. A cascade represents a cluster of orders capable of triggering chain reactions, similar in nature to an avalanche or a domino effect. The hierarchy of these levels functions as a refinement of a locally developing trend. The break of a single block can initiate a full chain reaction. Now that I have a defined range, I apply a COG Fibonacci to mark the center of gravity of the range, the equilibrium zone. Price is expected to gravitate toward this zone and then escape from it upon interaction. Liquidity within this price area can be highly polarized. I then examine the hourly volume. A break below the average volume midpoint indicates that selling pressure is meeting growing resistance, which is beginning to assert itself in a meaningful way. For this reason, my focus remains on the hourly blocks and the hourly range. Finally, I attempt to anticipate the next cycle, to determine whether it connects logically with the current structure. I observe that price has significant maneuvering space to generate a countercycle around the local backbone of the structure. I analyze the 15-minute volume to detect whether an initial seed of energy is forming and evolving into an hourly cycle. I observe a state of relative balance. Volume that appears above average on the hourly time frame is being decomposed into quarter-hour volume on the 15-minute chart. As a result, above-average selling volume on the hourly time frame can be concentrated into above-average buying volume on the 15-minute time frame. I note a clear structural alignment between the two. At this stage, I use a liquidity indicator that I developed, based on an algorithm designed to calculate proportional relationships between multiple elements, such as volume and momentum relative to price movement. The algorithm identifies clusters of liquidity formed as a result of an imbalance emerging from the synthesis of these three forces. Now let us observe how price evolved. As can be seen, price was drawn toward the COG, the center of gravity of the range, but failed to establish a sustained oscillation around the 0.5 level. It found temporary support within the hourly buy block, then returned toward the COG with renewed momentum. After a brief oscillation, price continued to validate the 15-minute block, before confronting the hourly sell block. The cascade of blocks triggered a chain reaction of short position closures. Once the cascade was exhausted, momentum dissipated, and price reverted back to the COG. This is classic price behavior, highly healthy reactions. Based on the movement within the hourly space, the system remains stable. The magnetic pull of the trend's backbone continues to exert attraction. Yet there is still sufficient maneuvering room for an additional cycle before any structural break or detachment from the backbone occurs. Overall, the trend remains intact and stable, although there is still significant liquidity resting below price, acting as a meaningful opposing force.